Well, this is a bit late, isn't it? Here we are, the 2021 Spring Mod Jam, just in full swing, and today we're taking a look back at some of the mods from the 2020 Summer Mod Jam. Obviously, I gotta apologize for the delay here. Things weren't exactly great back in 2020, and with any luck, we'll get to showcasing the Spring Mod Jam mods just a lot quicker. Won't have to wait half a year for that one. But anyway, today we're taking a look at at the dungeon mods and companion mods released for the Summer Mod Jam, which I'll remind you was an Ashlander themed competition. We've got 6 mods that we're showcasing here today, and as always, down links are just down below. So let's begin with our first dungeon mod, Ursulaku Burial Caverns Overhaul by Ramiros. And now, just as a note here, I'm going to be saying, words like Ursulaku a lot. A lot of these mods do have, names like that. But I don't really know how to actually pronounce them, so I'm going to be giving it my best shot, but just keep in mind that I am almost certainly saying it wrong. But anyway, the Ursulaku Burial Caverns were one of the more unique dungeons that were part of the Morrowind main quest, with arguably a much more notable design than a lot of the dungeons in the base game. And what this overhaul seeks to do is just to improve the Ursulaku Burial Caverns by adding more detailing, more hostile encounters, more new items and loot, and just a generally increased difficulty. The vanilla dungeon was a fairly large set of caverns, and with this overhaul, you'll find a number of just new atmospheric enhancers with vines, roots, misting effects, offerings to the dead, burial urns, mushrooms, and just a lot more cluttering to the passageways and chambers of this massive Ashlander burial vault, really enhancing the overall feel and making some of the more just notable locations here just that much more notable. There's quite a bit just added to the burial chambers here, but that's not all this mod does, because it also adds in 3 new dungeon interiors for you to fight through, expanding this already massive dungeon complex with just even more for you to do. Now, keep in mind, while this was originally a mod built in about 48 hours, it has gotten a few updates since the mod jam, so, some of this was added the week after the competition. But there's, still just a really impressive amount of stuff here. The new dungeon interiors fit in pretty well, and the overall dungeon detailing is just really beautiful and atmospheric. And not only that, but this also includes replaces for the Bonebiter's Bow, which you can see here, including a new arrow quiver, if you have weapon sheathing, and a replacer for the glass longblade Magebane, both of which are just really beautiful looking replaces here. Now, just real quick, I should mention that this mod has been merged into the larger Ob, Tombs, and Towers mod, and you'll find a link to that, bigger mod just down below. But anyway, this is just a fantastic overhaul, and I'd recommend, checking it out for yourself. And next up, we're taking a look at Marin's Misfit Mabragash by Mystic Elodie, a quest and a dungeon mod. This adds a new quest for you to do in the Marin Ancestral Tomb, right next to the Arabian Insum camp, which I'm doubtless mispronouncing. Honestly, it's a little insane how often I have to say the word Arabian Insum. Like, I've had to say that at least, a few times in the last week, and that's just... Is that normal? Is that what my life is? That I have to, say words like Arabian Insum multiple times a week? That seems really strange to me. But anyway, this quest just involves, delivering an item to a recent outcast from the nearby Ashlander tribe, Only problem is, she lives at the bottom of a massive drop into a set of caverns below, just below this ancestral tomb. So you'll have to jump down and gradually try and find her amidst the caverns and ruins just down below. And, this is just an absolutely beautiful dungeon expansion to the tomb here, adding a truly scenic set of caverns with, atmospheric lighting, detailing, and a really creative layout and design. Unlike our last mod, this one was actually, entirely built within the 48-hour window of the mod jam. It hasn't received any updates or add-ons since, so, this was just all built within the original competition timeframe, and it really is just, quite an impressive feat to, make such a detailed and atmospheric dungeon in just such a short amount of time. But in any event, this is about a small to a mid-sized dungeon with a decent number of ancestral spirits, ash golems, and the occasional skeleton that you'll have to face down, before you can reach the end. And I won't spoil the entire dungeon or quest here for you, but I will say that the quest has just a pretty sweet and a heartwarming ending that I personally quite enjoy. But anyway, it's also worth mentioning that this does expand the nearby Erethin ancestral tomb just as well, connecting it to the Marin ancestral tomb. But all in all, this is just an absolutely fantastic dungeon and quest mod, and I'd really recommend, just playing it for yourself. But moving on, our last dungeon here is Zanabi Burial Caverns by and Tessman. Now, obviously, this mod adds a new set of burial caverns for the Zanabi Ashlander tribe, which you can now find just to the west of their camp in the Grazelands, along with a new quest that you can do just after, you finished the first few parts of the main quest. And these new burial caverns are built in basically, the same fashion as the Urshulaku burial caverns, with, the same sort of atmospheric style. There's a decent number of opponents here, some ancestral spirits and skeletons and the like. But as you'll discover with the quest here, the real goal is to purge these burial caverns of just the influence of the Sixth House, as they've, set up shop in the lower parts of the tomb, disturbing the resting place of the Zanabi ancestors. This is just a pretty nicely detailed set of caverns with, about a mid-sized level dungeon for you to fight through and loot, and a decent adventure for you to go on, and again, just a fairly impressive addition for being made in just a mere 48 hours here. This is a somewhat critically underrated mod, though. It only has 4 endorsements on the Nexus, so, I'd recommend checking it out and at least giving it a try. It certainly deserves a bit more attention. But that's it for our dungeon mods, so next up we have Ashlander Huntress Companion by Stripes. As you might imagine, this is a mod that adds a new Ashlander Companion character for you to recruit on your adventures, and you'll find her at her home, a new yurt out in the Grazelands, just along the coast here. She doesn't really have any unique dialogue, though she does have a journal in her yurt, but otherwise, she just has a number of companion features, like a companion chair, the ability to brew various potions for restoring health or levitation, and the ability to heal you when combat starts. She's a pretty useful companion in battle, capable of holding her own, and she has all the standard fare companion features, so, you won't need to worry about her dying in battle. When she gets too low on health, she'll just teleport back to her yurt, where you can find her after a few days, once she's had a chance to recover. Anyway, like most companion mods, she can warp to you if you get too far ahead of her, unlike if you're using a blink spell to move quickly. And one of her just unique features is that she can automatically harvest ingredients if she walks over them, like, say, wickweed. and they'll show up in her inventory, which is pretty handy if you're, playing an alchemist type character. But anyway, this is a fairly simple companion mod, but it does have a few interesting features here, and it might be worth, just taking a look at. But finally, for our last mod, we have Chitta, the Siltstrider home by JCS, and yes, this isn't a dungeon mod or a companion mod, it's a player house mod, the only one released, for the Mod Jam, so we had to stick it in somewhere, so, why not here? But anyway, Chitta is a new Siltstrider house mod right outside of Nissus, so you can live in, if you so desire. You can buy it for about 5,000 gold and just move right in. But it's a bit of a tight squeeze. There's literally only room enough to stand in here, with some containers, a hammock, a couple shelves, and a table, and that's it. This was originally supposed to be a true mobile home that you could, move around in, but that didn't really make it in time for the Mod Jam, so, right now it's a stationary home, unique, but certainly a bit cramped. But that's it for today, so, as always, downlinks are just down below. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, happy modding, and I'll see you all next time.